She cheated on him. When he found out, he gave my mom another chance because he truly cared for my sister and I. But mainly, I suppose because mom was pregnant with his child. But she cheated again, so he asked us to leave. My older sister and I grew up poor and in and out of foster care. Mom met her too-good-to-be-true boyfriend when we were staying in a shelter for homeless people. He took us in and took really good care of us. I was finally able to live a decent childhood. But not long after Mom had my baby sister, she began cheating on her boyfriend again. And not long after that relationship was over, she saw a doctor who prescribed her opioids. Immediately, she was hooked and began doing things totally out of character. She started falling asleep sitting up often. She started stealing money from jobs and getting fired. Her addiction consumed her and started dictating our entire lives for the worst. Oftentimes, it was really hard to make ends meet. And when there wasn't enough to get by, Mom agreed to help people move drugs in exchange for money. I was a nice girl who tried her best to be honest. I was that girl who went to church and got involved in community activities. So you can imagine how nervous our living situation and my mom's state was making me. I didn't want the church community to know how much stress was being put on me to try and help make rent every month so we weren't homeless again. I was so afraid of being taken away from my mother that I kept my secrets to myself and began bottling my emotions. I ended up dropping out of school because I was needed at home to help out. I went to visit my dad for 2 weeks, which turned out into a longer stay. I was 15 when I got my first job at a donut shop, and I was barely making minimum wage. I had to start doing double shifts and, well, working as many shifts as they would allow in order to make enough. I thought that this money earned with hard hours I'd put in would help keep food in our stomachs and pay rent. That way, Mom wouldn't have to steal anymore. But I was wrong. It only fed her pill addiction. Every time she asked for money, she'd say it's for food or diapers for your baby sister, but it almost always went to pills. And I couldn't say no. If I did, I was worthless and selfish, or I was being a bad daughter. To this day, I break down in panic attacks sometimes when I do things for myself, things others would consider totally normal. Those words engraved in my head telling me my worth. I was too young and naive to know what addiction was, and that her falling asleep sitting up wasn't falling asleep, but she was nodding out from too many things in her system. I went back to my mom because my dad was also starting to take my hard-earned money. My mom lost the house, so we moved in with her current boyfriend, who lived at his dad's with his 6 siblings, stepmom, and his cousin. In total, there were 20 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment. And what's worse, they were all alcoholics. I had to leave my job at the donut shop because it was too far, so there was no more money coming in, besides the checks from the state. I was kept up all night by the drunken men in the house. Night after night, I got no sleep. Tired and frustrated, I began to be angry and resentful towards my mother. Not long after squatting in the apartment, we got kicked out and had to leave immediately, a pattern that was becoming all too familiar. We managed to find a motel where the owner let us work for him to lower the price of the room. So we began to clean motel rooms. It was far from pleasant. You can imagine all the nasties you uncover in a motel room. One time, I was making a bed and I got struck with a used heroin needle that someone tried to hide under the mattress. I cleaned 50 windows twice my size one day for an extra $10. I treated my sister and my baby niece to McDonald's the next day. I couldn't move because I worked so hard, but their smiles made it worth it. My mom hit it off with a lady who would walk her dog past the motel we were in. She lived nearby, so we'd see her often, and eventually, Mom asked her if we could sleep in her driveway in her van, so cops didn't see us. At this point, it was only me and my mom. My sister found somewhere to go with her baby. the lady said yes to us parking in her driveway, and on the first night, she came out and said she couldn't bear to see us sleeping in a van like that, so we could sleep in her extra room. There was no electricity, but it was a roof over our heads, and it became a temporary home. She became family, her and her husband, but they too, sadly, had a pill addiction like Mom. I got back into school, 10th grade. Luckily, I was able to attend my grade and not be held back. I got all A's and B's, and I got a new job at a McDonald's. My future was finally looking bright. But my family life was still a mess. At this point, I was so used to my life being flipped upside down every way, I was too afraid to let anyone in, to let anyone see the mess, including the guy I fell in love with. So he went into the army and found someone who could love him more easily and wasn't a hot mess. The day I feared most came not long after my short-lived romance with Army Guy. I was in a car with my mom when she overdosed. My sister, who was pregnant again, was with us too. I noticed Mom was nodding out again and got oddly thirsty. Suddenly, she fell over and began to turn blue. My sister started to freak out and hyperventilate. 2 other strangers were with us, but we were all frozen. She's going to die if I don't do something! I remembered the CPR lesson from a short segment in health class, so I instructed everyone to help her get out of her car. As soon as she was laying down, I started CPR. It's working! Color started to come back to her face. Luckily, the EMTs arrived and were able to revive her. This near-death experience got my mom to finally clean up her act, but the whole experience messed me up mentally. It keeps me up at night to this day. I'm healing and life is finally moving in a good direction. I'm going into my senior year and started an early college program. I'll be attending my dream college next fall to become a social worker, to help kids who have been through traumatic events like me. My past has become my inspiration for a better future, so I'm learning to live with what's happened and the things I've had to endure. It's shown me that I'll be okay. Everything will be okay. It's what you do with what you have that matters, and there's hope in every situation.